Yes. This is the thing we are going to start now. So can you see? Am I audible? Everything is okay for you? Anyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So this is the physical definition and the HO model. Look, whatever we have discussed before this slide, this is something related with the price definition, right? So there we assume country A is labor abundant and country B is capital abundant. That assumption is also true here. But given that assumption, W by R in country A is less than W by R in country B. Okay. So that was actually the price definition of factor abundance. Huh? So here you can prove your HO model with the physical definition as well. Physical definition of factor abundance. Okay. And for there you will get a look at the second bullet, something very difficult to pronounce. This is called the Ripsinski theorem. Okay. This is called Ripsinski theorem. There are so many Y, Z, etc. So this is called the Ripsinski theorem. So based on the physical definition of factor abundance, and when we are going to prove the HO model, we need the help of the Ripsinski theorem. Okay. So what is the Ripsinski theorem? Look, when factor prices and so the commodity prices are constant, that means your W by R is constant, your PX by PY, these are also constant. Then there is, yes, someone is there. Okay. So there is one-to-one correspondence between the endowment ratio and the production proportion. There is one-to-one correspondence between the endowment ratio and the production proportion. That means if you have, yes, if you have more of labor, that means you are going to produce more of X, which is labor intensive. Okay. The thing is same, only this is in terms of physical definition or the amount of labor and capital available in the country. Okay. So this is your Ripsinski theorem. So what the Ripsinski theorem is saying, actually the endowment of one factor, say the endowment, so many mistakes are there. Say endowment of one factor increases. That means the labor has increased. The production of the commodity which is using that factor intensively will increase. That means production of that commodity will increase. And the production of other commodity that will fall. Okay, this is important. If your labor endowment is increasing, if labor endowment in a country is increasing, then the labor intensive commodities production will increase. That is okay, that is acceptable. But the production of capital intensive commodity that will fall. Okay? So this is your Ripsinski theorem. And why it is so? Because there is an assumption of full employment. We will explain logically and mathematically our theorem. But there is an assumption of full employment. That is very important for this theorem. So this is your Ripsinski theorem. Okay. So your endowment of one factor is increasing. So the production of the commodity which is using that factor intensively will increase. And production of other commodity will fall. Okay. So this is your Ripsinski theorem. Now look, this is the diagram. Very simple. This is your age-word box diagram. Okay, this is your age-word box diagram. Don't go for that extended part first. Say OX is the origin of X production and OY is the origin of Y production. This is the age-word box diagram for the production. Okay, for the production. And look, your contract curve that is also concave, convex to your x-axis. Okay, so these are very common to you. Now consider I am taking one point on your contact curve. Say it is E. Okay. Say it is E. Look at this point. Say it is E. That E is here. Look. Okay. So you have, we are just taking a point E. Now consider, due to some reason, the amount of labor in your economy has increased. Now what you are measuring? What you are measuring along the x-axis? Along the x-axis, you are measuring the amount of labor, right? And along the y-axis, you are measuring the amount of capital. So when your labor endowment has increased, that means the length of your horizontal axis that will increase. So that is why you are getting this amount of labor now. Okay, that horizontal part of the box has increased. So now your labor, total labor availability is the length of this horizontal line. Fine. So given this new line, your OY, that is the origin of Y production, that is also shifted to OY dash. Okay. Your new Y production point is here. Then now consider you are at E, initially you are at E. Now what I am doing, I am just making a line, straight line from OX, cutting the E point and going upward. Okay, this is a straight line. OXE dash is a straight line. Okay, OXE dash, this is a straight line through E. Okay, so why I am doing so? Along this line, my Lx by Ly or Kx by Ky, whatever it is same, right? So along this line, your Lx by Ly, or because you are measuring Lx here, you are measuring Kx here, and similarly from this axis, it is like this. So it is constant along this line. So Lx by Ly at this point, or rather Lx by Kx at this point is equal to Lx by Kx at E dash. Done. Okay. Now consider what happened. If it is, then this is the, what is that? Lx by Kx. This is the amount of labor used for X production and amount of capital used for X production. Okay. So L by K of X. L by K of X. Specifically, we can say it as L by K of X. This is constant. Now, if L by K of X is constant and we have that homothetic production, homothetic preference, and we have that, just a minute, let me go to my assumption. There it is. Yes. There is CRS production function. Okay, it is CRS production function. So K by L, AP and MP, these are the function of K by L. Okay, so you have constant K by L. So you have your constant AP and MP. Let me go there. Yes. So you have your constant AP and MP. So we can say the amount of X by amount of Y at the point E is equal to amount of ratio. Actually, I'm saying about the ratio. The amount of X by amount of Y at E is equal to amount of X by amount of Y at E dash. Okay. And if it is, then after what I have done, I'm just making a line parallel to the horizontal line from the E dash, and which is cutting my this line at C. Okay, this line at C. So you can say that X by Y at E is less than X by Y at C. Okay, so this is how you can prove that when the amount of labor is increased, the amount of X production is increased, but amount of Y production is falling. Look, this is very, very natural. Here, this is your amount of X by Y. Okay, which is same as here. Okay, now I'm just making a line parallel to my axis. So this is C. So on that C, X by Y is greater than E dash. So this is same as this. This is greater than this. So what happened? X by Y at C is greater than X by Y at E because of my CRS production function. So from the diagram, you can prove that when labor endowment has increased, then the amount of X, which is actually labor intensive, the production of X has increased and production of Y falls. This is exclusively diagram. Okay. Now let me go to the next one. What is the economic interpretation of it? If I am just forgetting that Edgeworth-Bouse diagram, everything. So economically or logically, how can you explain your Revsonsky theorem? Look, your labor endowment has increased. Okay. So more labor intensive commodities produced naturally. So you need more capital because commodity production is based on use of two factors of production. Only labor cannot produce X. You need capital. So as there is full employment, how to get the capital? You have to reduce the production of Y. Okay. So production of the capital intensive, look at this. So production of the capital intensive commodity has to be reduced. Okay. So this is the logic behind the Ripczynski theorem. Actually, the theorem is in that sense, Ripczynski theorem is very easy to understand. Okay. Because your labor endowment has increased. So more labor intensive commodity is produced. There is full employment, but to produce more labor intensive commodity, you need more capital. How to get the capital? You have to reduce production of another commodity, which is actually the capital intensive commodity. Okay. So this is the way you can logically prove your Ripczynski theorem. This is the mathematical one. Before that, just tell me whether you have any problem. Do you have any problem with this? Can you hear me, by the way? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Ma'am, could you show the last slide?
This one, okay, fine. Check. Today I have to do a lot of things. As this is the last class, maybe this is the last class before your puja. I don't know actually whether we will have any
Ma'am,
class. Yes.
ma'am, I'm having a problem here. Here it's saying that needs more capital as well to produce a labor intensive commodity. But since we are increase, ma'am, here it's written no that needs more capital as well. Means well labor. So when the amount of capital is increased, then we are decreasing the capital intensive commodity. Is it against the HO theorem?
No. No. So HO theorem is saying what? HO theorem is saying at the end of the day, if you are a labor abundant country, you should export and produce more labor intensive commodity. So this is what you are doing. Your labor endowment has increased. So that means you are, obviously you are now a labor abundant country. Okay. Relatively, you are more labor abundant now. So in that case, you are trying to produce more labor intensive. So everything is very good with the HO model.
Oh, okay, okay. Now I got it. Now, okay.
Any other question? But then after I will go for the 2 pages mathematics. So before that, make yourself clear with the logic.
Ma'am, the point C in the last diagram represents the greater endowment point.
Yes, more amount of X and less amount of Y. So I'm going to the next slide. This is actually this very similar type of mathematics is here. Just check. You have the labor endowment equation. L is equal to ALX plus X plus ALY plus Y. And similarly for capital. Okay, there is full employment, so that equality should be there. Now, as W by R is unchanged, that is our assumption now. So factor coefficients are unchanged. Okay, that means that LX by LY, these are constant here. So that means ALX by ALY, these are constant, we cannot change it. So now we are going for total differentiation. You are getting that third line, DL is equal to ALX dx plus ALY dy. Okay, now you are dividing both sides by L. So you are getting DL by L here. The first term is also divided by L. And additionally, you are multiplying that first term with X and dividing it by X. So it becomes X into ALX by L and dx by X. Similarly, the second term. Okay. So you have actually what you are trying to do every time. You are trying to make L bar is the weighted average of X bar and Y bar. The same thing you have done there also. In that case, your production was a weighted average of, no, in that case your price of x, that was the weighted average of w hat and r hat in case of Stolper-Samuelson theorem. But here your labor endowment L hat is a weighted average of x hat and y hat. Okay. And similarly, your k hat, that will come from your equation 2, that your k hat is the weighted average of x hat and y hat. So you have your L hat, you have your k hat, they are the weighted average. Done. Now you are just making the difference, L hat minus k hat. So it will be like this. Then you are getting that determinant. Then the value is this. So everything I have done actually for Stolper-Samuelson. Similar type of thing we have done. Definitely we didn't do that previously, but similar type of thing we do. So that becomes tilde kx, tilde ky, tilde lx, tilde kx. Actually, these are the terms within the bracket. So that is how you can just remove those bracket and write it as determinant tilde. Okay. And in the next point, you are doing this. L hat minus k hat, determinant tilde, x hat minus y hat. Okay. Now look, what is determinant tilde? This is the x. Okay, it is greater than 0. Why it is greater than 0? Because labor x is labor intensive and y is capital intensive. So look here. Look here. Last line. Look the last line. Tilde lx minus tilde kx. Okay. Tilde lx means what? Tilde lx means x into alx by L. This is your tilde lx. Okay. This is your tilde lx. Look at this. This is your tilde lx. X into alx by x. And what is your tilde kx? Tilde kx is here. Okay. That actually I am not writing it, but it is tilde kx is the proportion x into a kx by k. Okay, that should be tilde kx is, if you just look at this line, so you can understand it will be x into a kx by k. Now, if you are assuming, as we are assuming that x is a labor intensive, so proportionately more labor is used for x production than the capital used in the x production. So that is why we are saying that as alx minus tilde lx minus tilde kx is greater than 0. Why? Because x is assumed as labor intensive. And with the same reason, you can say that second line, look at this. Here also, as we are assuming y is a capital intensive, so tilde ky minus tilde ly, that is also greater than 0. Okay. So in that case, we can say in that, okay, fine. So determinant tilde is greater than 0. And it is less than 1. Why? Because it is, you can understand, it is the difference between two fractions. Okay. It is the difference between two fractions. Either tilde ky minus tilde ly or tilde lx minus tilde kyx. Okay. This is a difference between the fraction. So it must be less than 1. And it is greater than 0 because tilde ky is greater than tilde ly and tilde lx is greater than tilde kx because of our basic assumption. So finally you are getting what is your tilde. So tilde is something which is greater than 0 and less than 1. So it is a positive fraction. Fine. So then your x hat minus y hat, that becomes a beautiful thing. L hat minus k hat divided by determinant tilde. Now come our theorem. If L hat is greater than K hat, that means if the labor endowment in your economy has increased more than the capital endowment, then from this equation, where is my cursor? I cannot see anything. Where it is? Yes. Look, as this is true, so you can say that if L hat is greater than K hat, then X hat is greater than Y hat, because your determinant tilde, this is a positive fraction. That means if, as it is in the denominator, so your L hat minus K hat is greater than X hat minus Y hat, right? So in this way, you can say that if L hat is greater than K hat, that means this side is a positive one. So your X hat minus Y hat, X hat is greater than Y hat. That means your left hand side is also a positive one. Fine. Now look, L hat and K hat, what are those? They are the weighted average of X hat and Y hat that you have derived here. Okay, equation 3 and equation 4, they are showing this. So you can write, if you just club again, you are just trying to club these two inequalities together. Then you are getting x hat is greater than L hat is greater than K hat is greater than Y hat. Done. This inequality, do you have any problem with this inequality? This inequality, if you have any problem with this inequality, do you have any problem? Do you have any problem with this inequality? Okay, take your time. Take your time. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because this is very similar to your Stolper-Samuelson theorem. Now look at last two lines. Again, we are coming to our Rybczynski theorem that somehow if your labor endowment has increased, that means L hat is greater than 0. But there is no change in your capital endowment, so your K hat is equal to 0. So if you just put your K hat 0 here in this inequality, then what you are getting? X hat is greater than L hat, which is obviously greater than 0. This part is 0 and this part is y hat. So you are having x hat is greater than 0, y hat is less than 0. So that means the when the labor endowment has increased in your country, then the commodity which is intensively using the labor, that is your x here, the production is increased and y hat is less than 0. Okay. That means the commodity which is using capital intensively, its production falls. This is how, with the help of the Rybczynski theorem, you can prove mathematically, with the mathematics, you can prove your Rybczynski theorem. Just a minute. I am coming. Yeah, sorry. Here is my slide. Okay. So do you have any problem with this mathematical derivation of your Rybczynski theorem? You can ask me. If you have any problem with this mathematical derivation, you can ask me. Otherwise, I will go to my next slide.
Ma'am, can you please show the previous slide once?
Look. Look, our theorem is not any theorem, it is Ripsinski theorem. But as there is so many C and Z, so there is a high chance to make a spelling mistake. So I'm just leaving that part. I'm writing it our theorem. But it is actually your Ripsinski theorem.
Ma'am, done.
Okay. So now I am coming here. Because this is the Ripsinski theorem. This is not HO theorem. Okay. With the help of this theorem, you have to prove your HO theorem. That was your objective. So here
Ma'am,
it is. Yes.
ma'am, why are we considering L hat greater than K hat? Ma'am, here it should be in Ripsinski theorem K hat equal to 0.
Yes. No. What you are saying? Tell me again.
Ma'am, here why is that we are considering L hat greater than K hat?
Oh,
If
because
L,
we have. Complete your question.
because here we are assuming only labor endowment is increasing in Ripsinski theorem.
Yes. No, Ripsinski theorem is not considering only increase in labor endowment. You can change any of your factors. Okay. But that is why this is a general statement. This line is the general statement that if L hat is greater than K hat, then X hat is greater than Y hat. Look at your Ripsinski theorem. Look, endowment of one factor has increased. It is not saying that your labor should increase. Okay. This is the Ripsinski theorem that endowment of any factor, if it will increase, then production of the commodity which is using that factor intensively, that will increase. Okay, fine. So Ripsinski, we are explaining it in terms of labor endowment. You can explain it in terms of capital endowment, no issue. So that is why we have to make a generalized statement. That if L hat is greater than K hat, X hat is greater than Y hat. This is the generalized one. Okay. Because of this equation, you can write it. Fine. From this equation, you can write it. And if it is, then you can write this inequality as well. Okay. You can say that K hat is greater than L hat. In that case, Y hat will be greater than X hat. And that is also true. That is also true. If capital endowment will increase, definitely the commodity which is intensively using capital, that is Y, that will increase. That is not an issue. But from this, we are getting this inequality as a generalized statement. X hat is greater than L hat is greater than K hat is greater than Y hat. This is up to this point, it is the generalized theorem, general theorem. But then we are applying last two lines. In last two lines, we are applying our concept that say labor endowment has increased without change in capital endowment. So that is why our L hat is greater than 0 and K hat is equal to 0. So from this general inequality equation, we are getting X hat is greater than 0 and Y hat is less than 0. This is how we are proving our Ripsinski theorem. But up to this point, this is the general one, general Ripsinski theorem. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any other query? Or is it clear to you, or you are asking something else?
No, ma'am. It's okay.
So is it clear? Any other question? Anyone wants to ask any question? Okay. So I am going to my next slide. Intuitive interpretation. Look, due to Ripsinski theorem, y by x in country B is greater than y by x in country A for any particular px by py, because this is the physical definition of factor abundance. You can write it in terms of A also, no issue. But here, okay, fine. For a change, we are writing in this way. That if Px by Py is constant and country B is capital abundant, then we can write y by x in country B is greater than y by x in country A. This is from the Ripczynski theorem. This is from the Ripczynski theorem. Okay. If your labor endowment has increased, you are going to produce x more. So if your capital availability will increase, then you are going to produce more of Y. And as country B is assumed as a capital abundant country, so we can write that Y by X in country B is greater than Y by X in country A. The first bullet, the first bullet is clear to you or not? Because in this bullet, we are applying our Ripczynski theorem differently. So that is why I am asking. Is it clear to you?
Ma'am, not clear.
Yes, that should be. Look, what your Ripczynski theorem is saying, that in your country, if the labor endowment has increased, you are going to produce more labor intensive commodity. Similarly, you can say that in your country, is capital, availability of capital has increased, then you are going to produce more of capital intensive commodity. Up to this point, is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, fine. If it is clear, now look, country B. Country B is assumed as a capital abundant country. So we can easily say in country B, the availability of capital is more than country A. Is it okay? So if it is okay, then look, if the relatively more capital is available in country B, then country B is interested to produce more of capital intensive commodity than country A. Right? Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then you are getting that first bullet. Y by X in country B is greater than Y by X in country A. Now you get my point. That is why I was asking that we are applying Ripczynski theorem in some different way. So make yourself clear. Okay, fine?
Ma'am,
Yes.
here did we assume that capital endowment have increased?
Yes, in country B, definitely. Because country B is capital abundant. By definition, country B is capital abundant. So we can easily say in country B, capital availability is increased. That is why it is capital abundant.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so our starting point is like that. Say the country A and capital B, country A and country B, they are identical or homogeneous. And given that, say in country B, capital availability has increased. So it becomes capital abundant country now. And as it is capital abundant, it is going to produce more of capital intensive commodity than country A. So we are getting this inequality. So this is how we are applying our Ripczynski theorem here. Okay, now look at the second bullet. Yes.
Ma'am, this can be shown without the Ripczynski theory as well, ma'am. It is one
Why-
capital
why-
abundance will and capital abundance will of course produce more capital intensive.
No, this is your HO theorem. This is your HO theorem. You are going to prove your HO theorem. Capital abundant country should produce more capital intensive commodity. Right? Capital abundant country should produce more capital intensive commodity. This is actually your Ripczynski theorem. Right? So you are going to prove that one. How can you say your theorem? How can you apply this theorem which you are actually going to prove in your very first line? That you cannot do. We are applying Ripczynski theorem here because that we proved. Okay, that we proved. With the help of the Ripczynski theorem, we are going to prove our HO theorem. That is the price difference. Once there is price difference in autarky, there will be trade. And if that trade is following a HO pattern, then fine, everything is okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So you have your first line. Now look at the second bullet. Because of the homothetic preference, y by x consumed in A is equal to y by x consumed in B. This is the property of your homothetic preference. Okay, that relative demand is same. So y by x consumed in A is equal to y by x consumed in B. But y by x produced in B is greater than y by x produced in country A. So do you get my point? Production, in case of production, there is inequality. But in case of consumption, there is no inequality because of this assumption of homothetic preference. Okay. Fine. Again, you are confused. Tell me, where is your problem? Actually, what we have done, initially everything is same. Okay, initially country A is very similar to country B. Now, given that situation, say in country B, capital availability has increased. So, according to Ripsinski theorem, country B is going to produce more of Y, or rather more of Y by X than country A. Okay. And there is homothetic preference. What is the property of the homothetic preference? That Y by X consumed in A is equal to, that means the demand. Demand should be same. This is the homothetic preference. So Y by X consumed in A is equal to Y by X consumed in B. Okay. So there is no consumption difference. In the autarky, there was no consumption difference between these two countries. The problem was the production. And this is your HO theorem. The demand is not the reason behind the trade, right? The basic why there is a trade, because why there is trade, why there is price difference in HO theorem, because of that factor availability. That is the reason. So we are going there. So as there is factor availability, the difference is factor availability. There is a difference in factor availability. So you have to eliminate all other causes of trade. Everything is same, only factor availabilities are different. Then whether there is any trade or not, that we are going to check now. So that is why we are assuming, that second assumption, we are assuming homothetic preference, and that second bullet is coming. Okay. Look, in the first line shows that production is different. Y by X in country B is greater than Y by X in country A. So there is a difference in production, but that production difference is not because of the technological difference. That production difference is not because of the difference of ALX, ALY and all this. So we are just eliminating Ricardian theory as well. The difference in production is there. Why? Because of the factor availability. B has relatively more capital than country A. So B is going to produce relatively more labor intensive commodity than A. This is our Ripsinski theorem is saying, and that is what we have written in our first bullet. Okay, so first bullet is saying yes, there is production difference. But the background of this production difference is the difference of factor availability, not the technology. And the second bullet is saying there is no demand difference as well because of that homothetic preference. So demand is not the reason behind your trade. Consumption is same in both the countries. Any other issue? Want to ask anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you can understand there is production difference, but there is no consumption difference. Now say that Px by Py, which we have written in our first bullet for a particular Px by Py, say this is the autarky Px by Py of country A. Because we are doing everything in terms of country A. There is some change in country B with respect to country A. Look at in the first bullet I said that. Let's say initially both are in the same situation. Suddenly in country B, the capital availability has increased. So again, we are looking country B in terms of country A. And in the third bullet also, we just mentioned that that Px by Py, which we assume as a constant, this is the autarky terms of trade of country A. Done? So given that Px by Py, everything is there. Now look, if you just look at country B now, because in country A there is nothing, okay? In country B it is same as before. So just forget country A. Concentrate on country B. What is happening with country B? In country B, look at the first bullet again. The production of Y by X in country B is greater than production of Y by X in country A. Okay. And the second bullet is saying that Y by X consumed in country B is equal to Y by X consumed in country A. Okay. Now, as this Px by Py is the autarky Px by Py of country A, so we can say, we know that in the autarky, whatever you are producing, you have to consume it, right? Whatever you are producing, you have to consume it because there is no scope of export, import, saving, dissaving, nothing is there. So if Px by Py is the autarky for country A, so we can say that Y by X produced in country A is equal to that Y by X consumed in country A, right? You agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So if it is, so we can replace Y by X in country A here by Y by X consumed in B. Now do you agree with me? In the autarky, that means Px by Py, that Px by Py is the autarky price of country A. Fine. Now, if it is, then in country A, Y by X produced is equal to Y by X consumed. So these are equal, okay? These two are equal because this is the autarky for country A. You are producing, so you have to consume it. You are in autarky. Now, if that Y by X consumed in A is equal to Y by X consumed in B, so you can replace this by this. You can replace this by this one, right? You can write this. You can write this. You can write this here, right? Do you agree? What you are produced, you have to consume it. Done. Your autarky is very much clear. Now, as your consumption is equal to the consumption of country B, so I can replace this by your consumption of country B. বোঝা যাচ্ছে না বোঝা যাচ্ছে না? আবার বলছি দেখো। that Px by Py is assumed as the autarky terms of trade of country A. As this is the autarky for country A, so y by x produced in country A is equal to y by x consumed in country A. Do you agree with me with this line? Y by x consumed in country A is equal to y by x produced in country A. Is it clear to you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, y by x consumed in A is equal to y by x consumed in B because of that homothetic preference, right? Right?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So I can say that y by x produced in country A is equal to y by x consumed in country B because they are equal, na? That consumption part is equal. So one's consumption can be replaced by another's consumption. Y by x consumed in country B. So I'm just cutting this one. I'm just cutting this one and I'm writing in this place I'm writing y by x consumed in B. So that becomes y by x produced in country B is greater than y by x consumed in country B. Look at this. Look at this line. বোঝা যাচ্ছে? Simple.
Yes, ma'am.
It's very simple actually. I'm just replacing this by y by x consumed in B. That much, nothing else. So this is my B, this is a component with B, country B, and this is another component with country B. So these things I am writing in this fourth bullet. That so y by x consumed in B is less than y by x produced in B. I can write it in other way that okay, y by x produced in country B is greater than y by x consumed in country B. The same thing. Huh? So here it is. Y by x consumed in B is less than y by x produced in B. This is coming logically from first two lines. Now, if this inequality is true, that means your consumption is less than your production. Okay. Y by x consumed in B is less than y by x produced in B. So I can, if I just make it inverse, then it becomes x by y consumed in B is greater than x by y produced in B. Do you agree with me? This line is saying y by x consumed in B is less than y by x produced in B. So everything in terms of y by x. So if I am trying to write it in terms of x by y, then that inequality sign will be just opposite, right? It is not clear. It's very easy. Why it is not clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Huh?
ma'am.
Okay. Because I cannot understand again whether it is clear to you or not. So please tell me. Huh? So here x by y consumed in B is greater than x by y produced in B. So relatively more x is consumed in B than its production. Okay. So that means there is excess demand for x in country B. There is excess demand for x in country B. And if, look at this, so there is excess demand for x in country B. And if there is excess demand, then you know what will happen, the price will increase. So Px by Py is increasing in country B. Okay. Okay. Px by Py is increasing in country B. So we have started from the same platform. A and B both are in the same platform. First of all, in country B, amount of capital has increased. So we are getting the first bullet from the Rybczynski theorem. We are getting the second bullet as with my from my assumption of homothetic preference, and we are just trying to club first two bullets. Then we are getting my fourth bullet. And making inverse of that fourth bullet, we are saying our fifth bullet, that is the excess demand for X in country B. Okay. So if there is excess demand for X, then price will increase automatically. So Px by Py is increasing in country B. Okay. So you have one Px by Py that was given, and it is the autarky terms of trade of country A. Given that autarky terms of trade of country A, country B's price has increased. Okay. Right? Actually, I should write here another line. If the last bullet is true, then you are getting Px by Py of country B is greater than Px by Py of country A in autarky. Is it okay? Px by Py in country B is greater than Px by Py in country A at autarky. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes. So if it is, then you are getting everything. If that part is clear, so you have your theory. Because what I am saying that Px by Py of country B is greater than Px by Py of country A. Again, if you just write it in your own way, so it becomes Px by Py of country A is less than Px by Py of country B. Now you are getting your price difference, your known price inequality. Px by Py of country A is less than Px by Py of country B. So when trade opens, again that theory is coming that okay, the relative price of X is less in country A, so it is going to export X. And with the same reason, country B will export Y. So you have your HO theorem. Country B has relatively more capital, so it is exporting the capital intensive commodity, and on the other hand, country A has relatively more labor, so it is exporting labor intensive commodity. So you have your HO theorem in this way. Okay. Is it okay?
Ma'am,
Hmm.
and there
Follow.
will also be excess supply of Y country B. Ma'am, if we look at Y by
Yes, 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 yes. Obviously, there is. That is why relative price of Y is less in country B. Px by Py is increasing, means Py by Px is falling, na? We are explaining in terms of X. You can explain it in terms of Y as well, no issue. You will get the same point. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
These things are okay. Then we have done our HO theorem. In several ways, we have done the basic thing of our HO theorem, Nash-Lolin model. But the thing is that there are so many diagrams inside each and every proof. I leave those diagrams. You can use your PPC concept to explain it. You can use your Edgeworth box diagram to explain it. I use the diagrams when it is necessary. Okay. when the diagrams are coming as additional, as an additional part, I leave that part. But you can, if you go through different books, there are so many diagrams, so many diagrams. Some books are trying to explain it in terms of PPC, some groups are trying to explain in terms of social indifference curve. So many things are there. Don't confuse. The basic thing is this. The basic thing is this. Everywhere you can get these points. All whatever we have discussed in the class, you will get everywhere. But additionally, there may be some diagrams. That is actually some, I can say, some additional information. Okay, that much. That much I should say about the Exter-Rollin theorem. Now I am coming to the comparison section. What is the advancement of the HO model over the Ricardian model? Actually, we have discussed it already, but sometimes a short question may come. That is why these points are there. First of all, Ricardian model is based on one factor of production, and HO theory is on two factors of production, right? In Ricardian model, it was only labor, and in HO model, it is labor and capital. The Ricardian model aims with the complete specialization. You know, after the trade, both countries can go for complete specialization and will produce any of these two commodities. And HO model is saying about the incomplete specialization. Obviously, HO model doesn't mean that you have to produce incomplete special. You are always going for the incomplete specialization. Complete specialization option is also there, but incomplete specialization is coming something new as compared to the Ricardian model in trade. So we can conclude that Ricardian model is a narrow concept and HO model is a general concept. So this is the comparison you can do. Now this is a very common question in university. The role of demand in Ricardian model. We will explain this by dividing the answer in two parts. What happens in autarky and what happens in trade. So first of all, in autarky, demand plays no role. Why? Because Px, you know, in Px is WLX. Py is WALY. So there is no demand. Look, there is no demand. ALX and ALY, these are showing the technical coefficients. The technology is represented by these labor coefficients. Okay. If there is any technological development, your ALX and ALY, that will improve. It will increase. So your Px and Py, your price of X and Y, these are exclusively determined by these ALX and ALY, that is your technology. There is no importance of demand. So in autarky, there is no need of demand. Whether in case of trade, in case of trade, demand plays an important role. Now you can ask me how. Look, in this case, you have to draw the diagram. As I have to draw the diagram again, and I'm not interested to do that, so I just mentioned the point. When you will give the answer, definitely you have to draw it. Which diagram? The diagram of the relative supply curve. Can you remember your relative supply curve diagram? It's like this. It's like this. Can you remember this, then this, then this? This is your relative supply curve and your relative demand curve is here. Okay. And these are the axes. Can you remember this diagram? In case of Ricardo?
Yes.
This is your relative, yes, this is your relative supply curve. I'm trying to write, I don't know whether I can. This is your relative supply curve. And this downward sloping is the relative demand curve. Look, here that intersection point is giving you international terms of trade. And it must be, as I said, it must be on this vertical straight because of that Ricardian thing that you have to go for complete specialization. Right? So look, for complete specialization, it's okay. Anywhere on this vertical stretch. But the relative demand curve is showing the particular Px by Py in the international market. Okay? So to determine the international terms of trade, you must have the information about your relative demand. Without relative demand curve, without this downward sloping curve, you cannot find international terms of trade. So that is why when trade is there, demand plays an important role in Ricardo. But in Otter K, there was no role. Okay? So this is the importance of demand in the Ricardian model. Fine. Sometimes this questions is coming, so that is why I am saying this. Now here comes the paradox. Up to this point, tell me if you have any query, just ask. Then I am going to that controversial section. Okay, so you don't have any problem. So I'm going to the next one. Okay, fine. May I go to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
May I go to the next slide? Okay. So this is the next slide. Actually, in one of my previous classes, I mentioned this Leontief paradox. Leontief is the name of an economist. Huh? What he has done, there is one theory, that is the HO theory. So once you have the theory, as an economist is always trying to apply that theory. You always want to check whether this theory is true in real life, right? So that is what Leontief also did. So what he did, he has taken the data, export-import data of US economy. Huh? It is actually a very old theory. You can see the data set 1947, 1951, 1962. He had taken these three years data set of export-import data. Now it is not actually the export-import data in that sense. What he has done? He has taken the capital labor ratio of $1 million worth of import competing commodity, because you are concentrating in a single economy. So in that case, if you are going to find out the import data, that means you are going to get the data of some other country. So you cannot compare K by L of other country with K by L of the domestic country, and you are going to make some conclusion. That you cannot. You have to take everything of the domestic country. So that is why in place of import, he is taking that import competing sector. Okay. And K by L ratio of the import competing sector he has chosen. Okay. And in case of export, it's very good. For 1 million worth of export, the capital labor ratio for 1 million worth of export. Okay. So he has taken K by L ratio of a 1 million worth of import competing commodity and K by L ratio for $1 million worth of export. Okay. Fine. Now look at the value. This is the ratio of K by L of import to export. Now look, US economy is known as a capital abundant country. US is we know that country as a capital abundant country. So in that case, the country should export capital intensive commodity, right? Do you agree with me? According to HO theorem, do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So if it is, on the other hand, I can say the country should import labor intensive commodity. So if it will import labor intensive commodity, now look at this ratio. Ratio of K by L of import to export. K by L, capital by labor of import divided by capital by labor of export. If you are a capital abundant country, you should import labor intensive commodity, right? In that case, K by L ratio of import should be K by L of import, that should be less than K by L of your export. You are going to export capital intensive commodity, na? So obviously K by L of your export sector is greater than K by L of your import sector. Is it clear? You are a capital abundant country. So you will export capital intensive commodity and you will import labor intensive commodity. So K by L, that shows the use of capital by use of labor. So that K by L of your import, that should be less than K by L of your export. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but look at the ratio. If I am true that K by L of import is less than K by L of your export, then the ratio should be less than 1. Your numerator is less than your denominator. K by L import, this is your numerator. K by L export, your denominator. So as I am saying, K by L import, that should be less than K by L export. So that ratio should be less than 1, right? But look at the real data. It is always greater than 1. 1.3 in 1947, 1.27 in 1962. Actually, that just inverse and it is increasing. Do you get the thing? So it is just opposite. What I am saying, what HO theorem is saying, the data is showing just opposite. Your K by L of import is greater than K by L of your export. That means you are going to import capital intensive commodity. You are a capital abundant country and you are importing capital intensive commodity. Do you accept this? Is it okay? If you are accepting your HO theorem, then is that data okay to you?
No, ma'am.
No, it is just opposite. It is just opposite. You are a capital abundant country and you are also importing capital intensive commodity. That is why the ratio is greater than 1. Na? Greater than 1 means that. It should not be. You should import labor intensive commodity, but you are importing capital intensive commodity. So your economy is not going with the HO theorem. This is the paradox. This is the paradox. That is why it is said as Leontief paradox. Okay, there are actually in between there are a lot of data, export data, import data in terms of dollar. I just leave all those because we are only interested about this ratio. So you have that paradox. So first tell me whether this paradox is clear to you or not.
It's clear, ma'am.
Clear. Okay. So you have one paradox. Now, Leontief didn't stop here. He is trying to explain that paradox. Why there is paradox? Because everything is very good with the HO theorem. There is no flaw. Then when you are trying to apply this theorem in US economy, it crashed out. So why? Where is the problem? So Leontief was trying to find out the problem. He was trying to give some reason behind this paradox. So what are those reasons? Why? Why there is paradox? First one, the first reason what he has given is the effectiveness of the US worker. Okay, effectiveness of the US worker. What is that effectiveness? Effectiveness means it is said by Leontief actually. He is trying to measure the efficiency of the US workers. He is trying to find out the efficiency of the US workers, and with some measurement he found that one US worker is 3 times productive than any of the less developed countries. You get my point? This is his calculation. He calculated that if you are giving everything, the other things are same actually. Other things are same. One worker from the less developed country is there and one worker from US economy is there. At the end of the day, that US worker can produce 3 times more than that less developed worker. Okay. So the US worker is actually more effective. So if it is more effective, so ultimately you can say that US economy is actually a labor abundant economy. It is not the capital abundant one. Your worker is producing a lot. So in terms of production, you are becoming a labor abundant country. Okay. If you are not trying to measure that labor availability or all that in terms of W by L, if you are just trying to measure in terms of efficiency, that is W by APL and R by APK. W by APL divided by R by APK, that is the measurement in terms of efficiency. Then that is less because your productivities are so high. Your labor productivity is so high that you are actually becoming a labor abundant country. Labor doesn't mean the number of people. Labor doesn't mean the number of people. It is the effectiveness. In terms of effectiveness, US economy is the labor abundant country. This is what Leontief said. But obviously, there are some criticism. The critics are saying that you are saying the labor is more effective. Why? Labor is more productive. Why? Because he is getting a good infrastructure. Now, if the same infrastructure is given to the capital as well, the capital is also facing the same infrastructure. So the effectiveness of capital is also increasing. Why you are saying that the effectiveness of labor is increasing only? Okay, as the infrastructure is same, the technology, everything is same. So not only the effectiveness of labor, effectiveness of capital is also increasing. So you should consider that also. This is what the critics are saying. For each and every point of this explanation, there is a criticism. Okay, so this is the first thing. Leontief was saying that US workers are more productive, so more effective. So in terms of effectiveness, US economy is becoming labor abundant. But the critics are saying that you are saying labor in the US economy is more productive. Why you are saying this? Because they are getting a better infrastructure. The same infrastructure is available to the US capital as well. Okay. So if that infrastructure is improving the productivity of labor, so that infrastructure is also improving productivity of capital. You should consider that also. Why you are only concerned about labor here? Okay, this is one criticism. This is the first explanation and the criticism. Okay, if time permits, I will just give you the note of the Leontief paradox, because in each year I used to give it. For this time I cannot, but hopefully we will have a lot of time after Puja vacation. In that case, I will obviously provide the note on Leontief paradox. Sometimes the question is coming for 4, 6 or 8 marks, maximum of 8 marks. Okay, is that okay? The first explanation, is it clear to you?
Yes.
Now look at the second, human capital. Again, this is very much similar to the first one. Actually, that theorem, that point is not given by Leontief. That point is given by Kennan, K-E-N-N, Kennan. Kennan said we have to consider a country, not only the amount of labor, number of labor and the number of capital, you have to consider whether the laborers are becoming human capital or not. Okay, you are saying US economy as a capital abundant. Why? Because its workers, its laborers are also so effective, so productive, then they are not only the labor, they are not only the human, they are now the human capital. So in that sense, US economy is a capital abundant country. If you just add those human capital with the available capital of the US economy, then it becoming the capital abundant country. But this is actually the labor. The laborers are skilled. That is why they are now the human capital. So as the laborers are so skilled, so they are going to produce a lot. And that is why he is exporting labor intensive commodity, not the capital intensive commodity. Okay. Because actually they are capital in the sense that they are human capital. They are human capital. But if you just look at those human capital, they are the human being. Na? So the number of human is there, number of men are there who are the workers, they are working, they are producing the commodity, and that is why rest of the world is watching that US economy is exporting labor intensive commodity. US economy, which is a capital abundant country, is exporting the labor intensive commodity, but this is the labor. The labor is actually a part of the capital. They are the human capital. This is what Kennan said. Okay? This is the concept by Kennan. But there is another criticism. One critic has distinguished, the differentiate human capital with the physical capital, and he explained, no, this is not the way you can explain the paradox. If you distinguish human capital with the physical capital, and if you consider that human capital in terms of your labor, then paradox is there. You cannot explain in this way. Okay. This is the second concept. There comes the third concept. The third concept is actually not given by anyone. This is a general concept. And sometimes it happens with any of the economy. What is that? You are a capital abundant country, right? US economy is a capital abundant country. And you should, according to HO theorem, you should export capital intensive commodity. Fine. But your consumption pattern is such that you are consuming a lot of capital intensive commodity. Your domestic consumers, they are consuming a lot of capital intensive commodity. So you are producing, okay, fine, you are producing relatively more capital intensive commodities, but your consumers are also consuming a lot of capital intensive commodities. So it may happen that there is a crisis. There is a crisis of capital intensive commodities in your own economy. Do you get my point? Is it clear? The third point, what I am saying, is it clear? Say you are, okay, for the time being, we are assuming US economy as a capital abundant country. According to HO theorem, it is producing a lot of capital intensive commodity. Fine? Okay, there is no harm. But the domestic consumer of the US economy, they are also consuming a lot of capital intensive commodities. And their demand may be more than the production. Okay. That may happen. That may happen that in reality, the demand is more than your production. So your demand is more than supply in your own economy. So there is excess demand. There is excess demand for the capital intensive commodity, and that is why you have to import capital intensive commodities from the rest of the world. Okay. Any problem with this?
No, ma'am.
I am coming to the fourth point, that is the factor intensity reversal. Okay. Now, what is factor intensity reversal? You know about that factor intensity reversal. We have discussed a lot about that. That in case of factor intensity reversal, okay, let me find if I can find it by chance, I can show you. Look at this. Look at this. Can you remember our very first diagram? If L by K of country B is very close to this origin, that means this yellow line, that country B is producing, country B is a capital abundant country, okay, and it is producing labor intensive commodity, that is Y here, and it will export Y. Okay, so in case of factor intensity reversal, it may possible that at least one country is violating HO theorem. Okay, and you are getting this. Factor intensity, if there is factor intensity reversal, you may have this paradox that a country is capital abundant, but it is exporting labor intensive commodity. Okay, now come the last point. This point is again given by Leontief. The technological gap and the product cycle, that actually I said in that class where I introduced the concept of Leontief paradox. I said initially when there is a commodity which is actually US economy is very much developed in that sense, that R&D sector is very much developed in that country. So many of the commodities are invented there and are coming in this rest of the world in the market. Okay, so when it is just coming, what happened? The technology is initially at the initial stage of this production cycle, the technology is only with the US economy. Rest of the world don't have this technology. Okay, because they have invented it now. So they have the technology. That country has that technology. No other part of the world doesn't have that technology. Fine. So in that case, initially it will produce a particular commodity by small amount because they are just going to enter in the market. So the production level is very small. At that stage, you need skilled worker to produce it because this is just the beginning of your production. So you need skilled worker. In that case, your commodity is becoming labor intensive. Okay, and after some time, when it is capturing the rest of the world's market, you need to produce a lot of that commodity. So in that case, you need a lot of a big industry, lot of machines, etc., etc. So now your production is becoming capital intensive. This is called the product cycle. Okay, so initially when you have just launched the product, you need a lot of skilled worker who are very much who are technologically sound, who are actually your good human capital. So they are producing it. They have invented it and produced it initially. But when the demand has increased, a lot of commodity has to be produced by the country. So he has to depend on the capital because he has to install machines because it is not possible for him to produce a lot of commodity with a limited capital, with a limited labor. So he has to convert his production process from the labor dependency from the capital dependency one. Okay. So this is why as a lot of commodities initially are coming from the US economy to the rest of the world. So that is why the data is showing that US economy is selling labor intensive commodities, but those commodities are actually just invented by the economy. That is why they are labor intensive. After some time it will be capital intensive. Okay? So these are the explanations of this paradox. Tell me your problem. Right to the last slide.
Ma'am, what are the criticisms of the last 3 points?
What is your question?
Ma'am, what are the criticisms of the last 3 points?
The last 3 point, actually, there is no such criticism. Consumption, actually, this is a theorem. That consumption pattern is another theorem to explain the trade. As I said in my first classes, very first or the second class, I say that there are 3 reasons behind the trade basically. The first one is the technological difference, that is the Ricardian model. The second one is the factor abundance difference, that is the HO model. And this is the third one actually. This is the third one, the demand. Demand may be the reason behind the trade. So there is no such criticism. And in case of factor intensity reversal, there is no such criticism. You know but how it happens. And the technological graph and the product cycle, again, there is no such theorem because this is reality. There is no such criticism because it is the reality. Everyone knows about the product cycle and what is happening inside the cycle. Okay. So basically, there are a lot of explanations. Everyone was trying to explain that paradox, but these are the very common and used explanation of this paradox. If you have any query,
And ma'am, the second point, ma'am, the criticism is that human capital cannot be like, ma'am, that is the paradox, that human capital is.
no. In case of there is another economist, another set of economists. They have just divided that capital. That the theorem is saying that you have to incorporate human capital with your capital. So they are actually on the both sides. Human capital, you can include it as a labor, you can include it as a capital. That is what the explanation was saying. But the critics, they have just divided the capital stock in 2 parts. First one is human capital and the second one is the physical capital. And after dividing that, they say that still that paradox is there. Still that paradox is there. You cannot explain with the help of human capital. Human capital is not the way to find the solution of this paradox. Critics did that. They have divided the total capital stock in 2 parts, human capital and physical capital, and then they analyze the data and say, no, the paradox is still prevails. Is it okay? So after that, I am going to discuss. I'm trying to discuss the university questions. I have some questions. So if you have any problem, ask. Otherwise, I will go to that section. Hopefully, you don't have any question. No. So this is the second part, second part of today's class. That is that discussion of the question. I tried to make those questions according to the year, but okay, maybe little bit difference is there. Anyway, so this is probably from question of 2012. What is the basic assumptions of the HO theorem? You know, what are the assumptions? And the second one is, what do you mean by Leontief paradox? The question is of 4 marks. Look, question is of 4 marks. So assumption, for assumption it is 4 marks, and Leontief paradox another 4 marks. So in that case, you have to explain the paradox. If possible, just give the data of that ratio. If not possible, okay, very much fine. Just inform the direction of change, whether it is increasing or decreasing, and then neatly explain the paradox. This is what the question is needed. Okay, so you have to explain very extensively the paradox. Then after, just give the points that how you can explain that paradox. Only 3 or 4 points is enough for the answer, if the full marks is 4 in that case. So I hope there is no problem with these 2 questions with anyone. This is the second question. Look. Oh no, same thing. My God. Yes, here comes. No, something wrong. And let me check, let me check. I had a lot of questions. Baba. Wait for 1 minute. Unfortunately, it is not saved. Let me find. Just a minute. Wait for 2 minutes. I'm trying.